Well, hey there, everybody. It's Michael Osinski.
And also Tyler Esselman.
And you are listening to This One Goes to 11.
This One Goes to 11. What is that? Well, it's our podcast where we invite someone on each week to make their case for what they believe is a perfect album.
So perfect that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
Still not cut mustard, 10. 11 good, 10 bad.
What's your preferred mustard, Tyler?
Spicy brown.
Okay.
Of course.
or I also will take a coarse ground mustard, like the like kind of the little like seeds in it.
It's all in the setting. You know, it's got the right mustard for the right job is what I what I always say.
Because sometimes on a hot dog, you just want French's yellow.
It's got to be French's yellow.
Yeah,
or
right.
I don't know what the Chicago standard for this is, but you know what? We met somebody when we were living in Chicago who might have opinions about this, and in fact, I trust them to have opinions about this. Michael, who are we speaking to today on the pod?
We are talking to Janie Killips.
Janie Killips. Oh my God. Janie Killips is a Midwestern folk artist in Chicago focused on creating immersive experiences with their company Birch House Immersive. They are currently producing, well, it's closed now, but they did produce a brand new immersive musical, The Last Days of Eden Creek, based on Killips' music and writings from the past decade. A fine body of work, let me tell you. A theater school alum, playwright, and musician their mom famously loves, Tyler Esselman. Janie, what's going on? Hi.
Oh, Jen, so glad to be here. It's true, my mom does ask about you just about every time I see her. So
God love her. How's she doing?
Sue's doing great.
No. So your dad's visual art output is quite impressive these days. Let me tell you.
He would be so honored to know that his art was brought up on a podcast because he'll tell anybody who has a heartbeat about his art. So,
Mike, you're killing it, Mike. So there's beautiful work coming out of the Killips family. It's like growing like weeds. Basically.
Yeah, thank you.
What's your take on mustard, Janie?
You gotta go yellow, just yellow on a hot dog, on a corn dog. And yes. I love a Chicago dog. I mean, who doesn't?
Right.
Idiots. I don't know.
Idiots don't like Chicago dogs.
They don't like Chicago dogs.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think they just want a standard yellow mustard on the. Yeah. Okay.
But if you're going warm pretzel, I love a honey mustard.
Yeah.
Pretzel. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a little more wiggle room with a warm pretzel.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
And I cook with Dijon. You know, I feel like I'm mixing Dijon into things more often than I'm putting it on to them.
Salad dressing.
Yes.
Yeah. God, this is great. Okay.
I'm glad we clarified all that. Yes.
Thank you for bringing this energy, Janie. Okay, so we're very excited. You're a musician. You're a multi-hyphenate of the highest order, and we want to know what album hath thou brought before the This One Goes to 11 tribunal today?
Yeah, this is Sufjan Stevens' famous album, Illinois.
Not the first time we've talked about Sufjan Stevens on the podcast, though the first time we are covering an entire album.
Yeah.
But before you get into your case, we have a little segment, perhaps you've heard of it, where you'll get to evaluate our case. And what is that segment called, Tyler?
That segment is called The Beginner's Guide to Sufjan Stevens Illinois in 60 Seconds. And you're doing it today.
I'm doing it this week. So
how do you feel about this one as a Sufjan devotee? Not to show our cards, but
yeah, it's gonna be tight. I mean, time wise, but right. I left. There's a lot of stuff on the cutting room for someone who is like not a big mainstream artist. Really, I would say. I don't think I think he still kind of isn't. I know there's the Oscar nomination. We'll get to that, but like he's made a lot of work. A lot of work, but anyway, okay, I'm ready for this.
Great. All right, so Janie, listen close. You're going to have a chance to assess Michael on his job done. I've got 60 seconds on the clock, starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Sufjan Stevens, astrologically a Cancer, was born in Detroit in 1975. Raised by his father and stepmother, he's the product of a Waldorf school and Interlochen Arts Academy, and he released his first album on his own label, Asthmatic Kitty, while studying at Hope College, a private Christian liberal arts school. Illinois, the second album in his since-abandoned 50 States project, was released in 2005. Based on Stevens' own research, it's a folk ode to the state, featuring lush yet lo-fi instrumentation, alongside Stevens' trademark soft vocals, with extremely long song titles referencing everything from Abraham Lincoln to serial killer John Wayne Gacy to the unique state holiday Casimir Pulaski Day. It sat atop all the best album lists that year and was made into a musical, which opened at the Chicago Shakespeare Theater and ran on Broadway in summer 2024. Since the album came out, he has remained extremely prolific, collaborating with many artists, venturing into electronica, putting out Christmas albums, even picking up an Academy Award nomination for his contribution to the film Call Me By Your Name. Most recently, he has been recovering from Guillain-Barré syndrome, as well as the loss of his partner, Evans Richardson, to whom he dedicated his last album, Javelin.
Oh, like we ever doubted you, Michael.
Well, I left out just a little phrase in there when I said his album, a favorite of the podcast, Javelin. But
sure.
Oh, well, all right. Whew.
Yeah. So well done, Michael. Yeah. So Janie, what kind of rating would you put on Michael's job done there?
Oh, that was incredible. I think a perfect introduction to what I like to think of this as the perfect Sufjan Stevens introductory album as well. The entry points into his work. This is the way to do it. And I'm going to talk a lot about this today, about how this album grows with you as you grow. But I think, Michael, you set us up perfectly to really feel out this crazy dense piece of work.
Would you say I've set us up to come on feel the Illinois, perhaps?
Oh, maybe. I do feel it.
One would hope.
All right. Well, I will accept that, Janie. I'm looking forward to this conversation. But before we dive into the album specifically, we do like to ask our guests a much more broad-based question, which is, what is and has been your relationship with music, writ large?
Music has been a pivotal part of my life since the beginning. I started playing piano at the age of 5, and then along the way picked up just about any instrument I could get my hands on. I played in orchestra, I played in band, I played in state orchestra for a long time, really just trying to play as much music as I could. I did a lot of musical theater as a kid, but for me, like the biggest thing was that I joined a folk band when I was in high school, and I ended up playing with those folks for a little bit over a decade, and their music education to me was so important about how I listen to music, how I find new music. One of my best friends, Ian, he introduced me to Sufjan, and we just text each other literally at least 3 times a week about Sufjan. That's just something that we talk about. And it's some of the first stuff we played together. We did a lot of Sufjan covers in our early days. So that's kind of where my musical upbringing went. And then eventually I was like, I want to write musical theater, maybe. I don't know. And I said, I'll go work on my storytelling. And I went to the theater school and got a playwriting degree. And now I'm every once in a while writing a musical of my own. And the one I'm working on right now is a folk musical using all those folk skills that I have. And I just love folk music.
Right. Well, okay. Yeah. So what is folk music to you then? Like how do you wrap your arms around that concept?
Yeah, folk music for me is all about accessibility and easy listening, but stuff that feels really rooted in both like truth, but also location. Location is really big in my kind of listening. Again, why I picked Illinois. Music sounds like places to me. So I think folk music does the best way to dictate what that feels like. Folk music so easily can be like, hey, this is what this place feels like. And I don't really feel that with other types of music very often. So for me, that's really how I feel music to be folk. You can go into like the textual analysis of like folk art was always passed down orally, was always based on the storyteller was so important in that process, and they kind of would make things their own. And as they go down from generation to generation, things would change and adjust and grow with the culture. So that's also a big part of folk. So when you listen to cool stuff like, Keep on the Sunny Side, the Carters played that forever, but so many other people have played that, and it sounds a little bit different depending on who you listen to. Some of that really old, almost country stuff is like so cool to watch kind of come down the generations and transform.
Morphs. It's like you become some kind of crazy fungus, mycelium structure in the way that it exists now, probably.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's not contingent upon instrumentation for you? I mean, do you think is there a particular set of instruments that have to be part of folk music, or is it a little broader than that?
I think it's a little broader. I mean, for me, it tends to be guitar. You know, I love a banjo moment. But folk, I think, is a bigger umbrella. There are things like bluegrass that I believe to kind of be under the folk umbrella, where you get more banjo, fiddle sort of feelings. But I also am so in love with piano music, and I think that piano can so easily be folk. Every once in a while, electronics start to trickle in. I think that's okay. I don't think that makes it not folk anymore if something's plugged in. Folk is a feeling, and if it's got it, it's got it.
Put that on a bumper sticker.
Folk is a feeling, guys.
Okay, we're talking Birch House merch. That might need to be. Tyler,
we call that Birch merch where we're from.
Stop. No, you can't say things like that when we're not doing points anymore. It's not fair. You give me points for that. It's messed up. Oh, Birch merch. Okay. Yeah. I feel like I have a couple school field trips that I remember as a young person where I was really first introduced to folk music because, you know, I was lucky that my district was doing things like that. Who knows if, you know, I don't have any kids right now, so I don't know if they're still doing that for kids. Education system being what it is, particularly on the public.
Don't even get me started.
Anyway, I hope I'm calling from the past. I hope everything went well last weekend on election day. But I very specifically remember a performance of slave spirituals that I went to at the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza as a kid out here in Southern California. And I still think about it probably every couple weeks, you know, just like you sort of hear something, you hear a passage of music and you're like, oh shit, you know, it just kind of transports you in some way. Do you have experiences like that sort of from your formative years where you have either specific performances that you remember of folk music or just any music in general that were sort of seminal for you?
The first thing that came to mind, which I was not expecting to come to mind, my dad played guitar around the house, and that was something that he did. And he had this tiny little sing-along folk book, and there was a song called Little Red Caboose, and he would just he would absolutely just bang the shit out of that song. And we'd have an absolute blast. And we had a little toy train that I could sit on and roll around the living room while he jammed Little Red Caboose.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so, and I love that a lot of kids have, you know, folk music is also a lot of children's music too. So a lot of people's first introduction to music in general is folk music because parents know it, you know, even if parents aren't musicians, those are things that they know and can teach their kids. So yeah. Oh, Little Red Caboose. Yeah. That's a great pull. I love that.
Bring that one back. Bring that one. Yeah. Little Red Caboose needs a revival.
Yeah, I was going to say that I'm glad you brought up the children's music thing because I was thinking about and I might be really dating myself here, but I'm thinking about Sharon, Lois, and Bram. If you are familiar with who they are at all,
no,
not familiar. No. They were all over Nickelodeon in the days when Nickelodeon was, really a network, I guess. A lot of Nickelodeon programming was Canadian. Okay. And I think that's where Ryan Reynolds got his start, technically.
There you go.
That's another podcast. But yeah, you're right. That it is. There's something kind of accessible about it. And it enables learning, I think, and community at the same time. It's easy to teach things with it, but then also it brings people together. So
yeah, and that's actually something that we just explored in the show that we did was that how can we include our audience to quickly join in some of this music, and music is community in so many ways. So hey, we're singing this hymn in the show. How can we have the audience sing the last two verses with us and have this moment of community? And folk music for us was very easy to translate to an immersive piece, and that was really, really, really special.
Mm-hmm. What about church music?
Oh, I grew up Catholic. I know all the Catholic hymns.
Yes, welcome to the group right here, baby.
And I played in church. I played music in church through high school. before I came out and they didn't want me anymore. And
Could have been any reason why they didn't want you anymore, though.
True.
Pick a reason.
I have a BFA. I'm gay. Yeah, those are the 20 ones. And I also was like in the like strummy, clappy part of church where when Vatican II happened and everybody said the old music that's good is not as fun. So let's do this weird new age, what they called contemporary music.
Right. Yeah.
And that stuff gets stuck in my head all the time.
Right. So we're talking that, like, how great thou art would be like that to be like classical church music. And then and then our God is an awesome God would be
that's exactly the example I was going to bring up. Yeah. Maybe once a month, that one stuck in my head. Oh, same. God, he's an awesome God.
He reigns that might be the first time that's been invoked on the pod, which is, good.
I think for a lot of people it's triggering.
Oh yeah.
What about handbells? Did you ever play handbells?
Ooh, no, I didn't. I was never able to play handbells.
Yeah, I got one on you there. Then I was part of the handbell choir. So.
Nice.
I want to call out before we talk about the album itself. I want to call out you've invoked the banjo a few times. I have a very specific memory of just one of the best collaborative experiences of my life working on your show, The Blood and the Pines at the end of college, directed by friend of the pod, Damien Kiley.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a very specific image of you two playing banjo together in that room. And I don't know if he was first that because he talked about learning banjo on his episode. And I don't know if he was like first learning it when we were working on that process, but it was just so cool. I'll never forget the sort of orbit that you two were in. As a budding theater artist at that time, you were always kind of like sussing out people's energy, collaborative energy as it relates to each other. And I always kind of admired the way that you two would sort of like move in between moments, whether there was something technical or maybe one of you just picked up an instrument and were, chatting about something. And there was something so, this spirit that you're talking about of folk music, of the accessibility of it and kind of like the ways in which it sets up a shorthand to communicate. I saw that manifest between you and Damon. So just want to call that out. Really beautiful experience, beautiful memory. Thank you for giving me that.
Oh, thank you. I also think similarly, like live theater does that. And so the two pair very well together.
Right.
I have found. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sufjan.
Yeah.
So what do you remember about discovering this album in particular?
So this is my friend Ian.
That's right. Ian.
Yep. Ian Cohen-Fry. He's a Lutheran pastor now. He married my wife and I, just a delightful gentleman. He introduced this album to me through Casimir Pulaski Day. We ended up doing a cover of this for a arts week at school. And we had a friend who played the piccolo. And we said, hey, you want to play the piccolo on this? And that was like our first weird collab. And then, so that was the first one. And I remember that was kind of the first time I was playing less classical music on the piano. And I was not playing musical theater. And I think I learned the mandolin to play that piece. I think I was just like, I'll just try this, I guess. I've never played the mandolin since. It's a very difficult instrument. It doesn't translate for guitar players. It translates for violinists.
Okay.
Oh, huh.
It's tuned the same way as a violin. So it's easier for them to pick that up, but it's also double stringed. So it's really hard on your fingers.
Right.
Do we really think
Nicolas Cage? Tiny. Was Nicolas Cage really playing that mandolin in Captain Corelli? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Oh, Tyler, also, we had a reading in our wedding from Captain Corelli.
Did you?
Yes, there's a beautiful excerpt in the book about learning that you are not two trees, but one.
Oh, shit. Okay, I'm going to need to look that up because I'm going to add that to the officiating library.
Ooh, yeah. For anybody getting married, guys, great reading.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was introduced to that song then, and then it just kind of dug in from there. We were in a weird pickup band called Ian's Imaginary Friends in high school, where Ian was pulling a lot of influences from Sufjan here, and he wore kite wings. And then all of us were different imaginary people. So people were dressed as like Santa Claus and as like luchadors and like weird fantasy people, while Ian was like in these wings. So
very Sufjan.
Very Sufjan. Yeah.
So, didn't he wear wings on one of his tours, I think?
Yeah, like, and he wore them for the Austin City Limits that he does.
Okay. It's crazy to me that Kazimir Pulaski Day is your way into this album, because it is by far the most gut-wrenching song on this album. I mean, because this album has a mix, right, of songs that are like, I mean, there's like 2 or 3 that are like history lessons. It's like sort of like Sufjan Stevens performs his civic duty by informing you about the history of Illinois. But then there's also Kazimir Pulaski Day that teaches you nothing about what Kazimir Pulaski Day actually is, but is instead this like tragic story of like someone in their youth losing a friend to dying when they were like in their teenage years or something like that. And that's, I mean, I guess after you discovered this song, like what was your journey of discovering the whole album?
I don't even know if I have memories of like finding all of it. You know, then after that, I think it was basically just Ian being like, we're going to play another cover. We're going to play another cover. We're going to play another cover. And so we did Chicago, we did Jacksonville. And then I think it really took me until I had bought the vinyl to really dig into it. And I put it on and I screamed, this album was made to be on vinyl. If you haven't listened to it on vinyl, my God, it does something. It's something completely different. And I, as a music nerd, I'm just such a sucker for a playthrough album. It just it's magical. There's so many tricks that you have to do to make it work, and it is just absolutely delightful. And so I think it was once I had the vinyl and I could sit and just listen to it as a whole, that's when I was like, whoa, this thing is. On a Saturday morning, this is what I want to do. I want to drink coffee and listen to this album.
God, yeah, it is. It bears much listening in that fashion, doesn't it?
Yeah. I will say about Kazimir Pulaski Day, it's actually one of the simplest musically, though. So it's actually some of the most accessible music to play on this album, which is maybe why that's where we started. I don't know. But it's so straightforward. And Sufjan does this on a couple of tracks that he's using 4 chords and he's using it the whole way through. Which is
that's kind of a cool thing as somebody who's so clearly virtuosic as a musician, to be able to simplify in that way that's an inherent power of his, I think. Yeah. I would go so far as to say that. You know, there's something interesting about the balance that he has between the grand and the mundane, right? He kind of walks this line. He walks this line between and maybe this is kind of why it's taken on the trappings of folk in the way that he's expressed himself, right? But like he kind of touches. We talk a lot about the universal, or like kind of like the timeless quality of an album, and when somebody decides that it's perfect for them. What would you say are kind of like the universal thing about this album that binds it together, if there is one?
There's something about. And you mentioned it about like the history lessons that are in here, but then there are also really small moments. And there is something about, and again, this goes back to place, where in these large moments, you get to remember the grandeur of Illinois in all of the like big moments. And then we're reminded that we're small parts of this story. And we come down to these tiny moments and we're kind of reminded that, but I also live here. I also live where these big things happened, and also small things happen. And it's this great kind of ebb and flow of those feelings where you get to have these like big celebratory moments that oftentimes are not about those intimate moments. And then he goes so small. You have to like sit in that, and then he brings you back out. It's an absolute delight. It is,
isn't it? It's so like because it's crazy that it's almost 20 years old now. This album, it kind of sounds pretty new. We were talking about this on an episode recently, that not every album sounds like it could have come out this week, but I kind of feel like this one does. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it has these like nice. The things he does with electronics in this are tasteful and well done, and it like we're kind of living in this like lo-fi moment, which I like love for my like day-to-day listening, sure. And it does give us this like lo-fi vibe. Yeah, I mean, this could come out in 8 years, 20 years, and still feel pretty new, pretty fresh.
Yeah, there's something about, you were highlighting the like small moments. I was just calling up the track listing, which is long. I mean, well, long in multiple ways. Long in the sense this is a 22 song album, though some of them are like real short. Like I don't know why, but I always enjoy the little snippet after Jacksonville called a short reprise from Mary Todd, who went insane, but for very good reasons. Which is not the longest title of a track on this album. I didn't realize how long the title of the Black Hawk War was, which I'll encourage our listeners to go look up how long. It's a very, very long title for a 2-minute song. But there is something. I mean, it does not surprise me that someone said, let's make this into a musical, if only because of the sort of like sprawlingness and the sort of, but then the interconnectedness of the tracks. Like thought has been put into what leads into what. I mean, I didn't get to see it. I heard it was largely more in the vein of like sort of a, Billy Joel. Was it Billy Joel moving out? Is that who it was?
Yep.
But you hear it's
when we saw you said it was like a ballet, right? Like it's essentially
so my hot take is that they kept calling it a new kind of musical, which I called it an old kind of ballet. It really is a ballet with music that is both modern, but we can also like understand the text. Ballet doesn't always have that. It's a ballet. I really can't say that it's a musical. It doesn't mean that it's not a special piece. I very much enjoyed the piece. I've had some conversations with some dancers who have some other thoughts. It's just, when I went, it was just a bunch of Midwestern gays having a good cry, which sometimes that's what we need. Totally. And there were really, really beautiful moments in the piece. I think there were a couple of misses, but overall really, really, really special. For me as a musician and as a person who's played this music before, it was the best part for me was hearing, 11, whatever, how many players they had play that music in a room live. It's so intricate. It's so incredibly difficult to play. And to have all of those people played in a room live was absolutely magical. And are you guys familiar with Sharonova? She's also under the name My Brightest Diamond.
Oh yeah. I saw her open for Wilco in October. Yeah.
Yeah, so she is on the original Illinois album. She's one of the backup singers, and she was the lead singer for the Illinois musical. And to hear her sing the piece live was just truly like top 5 musical experiences of my life. Just like absolutely incredible. Yeah, you guys should look her up because she's also now writing choral music. And so she's doing some really great new choral music that my lovely wife has the opportunity to like sing with her in the room, as my wife is a professional choral singer. And so she's like getting to work on these really cool Sharonova pieces. Everybody go listen to her in all of her different facets because she's an incredible musician.
She's wild. There was a lot going on during that set, and it was just her. And this is a fun pathway to go down. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like a good time to let our listeners hear a little bit more from this album. And we're curious to know, which of these 22 tracks have you chosen as your standout track from the album?
Well, so as I noted in my email, this changes frequently, but in this moment of my life, it is absolutely The Predatory Wasp of the Palisades is Out to Get Us.
All right, let's give it a little listen, and then you'll tell us more about why you chose that.